Horror thrives on practicality and practical effects, coupled with the story and the atmosphere. It is the basis of all horror. But now, with the overuse of CGI and now with AI creeping up on the scene, is horror going to lose its edge? Hey, how you doing? It is I, the Terrorific Lady, otherwise known as Brandy, and welcome to Retro Horror School, and a very happy Friday to you. If you look at any of the older horror movies, you will see practical effects littered throughout. Practical effects are the backbone of great horror, but the overuse of CGI and now AI threaten to undermine the creativity and soul of the horror genre. We'll explore iconic practical effects, the limitations of CGI and AI, the risks of AI in horror, and what's at stake. So here we go. Practical effects are awesome because they have this sense of tactile realism that pulls you right into the story. Think about movies like An American Werewolf in London or John Carpenter's The Thing. Those transformations and creatures feel real because they were built to look and move in a way that seems believable. And it's not only about realism, it's also about this sense of emotional connection. When a monster or effect looks real, your brain doesn't question it. In fact, it's almost in awe because you're so fully immersed. You're not thinking, oh, that's CGI or oh, that's AI. You're just in the moment. The craftsmanship of practical effects in horror are truly a team effort. Artists, designers, and directors all come together to establish a vision and to create something totally unique. It gives horror films personality. Think of that special effect in A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984, whenever poor Johnny Depp, Glenn, was killed. He was pulled into the bed, and all of a sudden this blood, very realistic looking blood, spurts up and sprays all over the room. There is no substitute for the practical effects and for that handmade touch. Now I want to touch on CGI for a little bit. It isn't all bad when it's used correctly. Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak is a great example of getting CGI right. The ghosts were actors in full makeup and then enhanced by CGI, not the other way around. And they were unsettling, but not the stars of the show. They were just chilling accents to an already scary atmosphere to begin with. And he used a massive soundstage for Allerdale Hall, where sets were built and then enhanced by CGI afterwards. This movie is proof that CGI can work blended with practical effects when it's used thoughtfully. But then there's the flip side of CGI. Who remembers a little movie prequel also called The Thing that came out in 2011? Who remembers it? Okay. Whereas the 1982 Thing, the special effects felt realistic and gritty. The effects in this movie felt too polished and too sterile for an environment like this. And because of that, the scares in the movie, they don't land and they don't hit the same way. Practical effects bring texture, they bring imperfections, they bring a sense of realism that CGI, when it's used on its own, fails to replicate. My mind always goes to when they use CGI blood, visual blood, in horror movies, like in the Midnight Meat Train is the main example that comes to my mind. It does not look real or realistic, and it doesn't immerse me into the scene. It's those little imperfections and flaws in the practical effects that make it seem so real. Now let's talk AI. It seems like everywhere you look, any program, you're going to see some AI feature that is in there. And it's been very controversial in Hollywood. Think of the 2023 Writers Guild strikes and the SAG-AFTRA strikes. They all fought to protect writers from being overshadowed by AI. They fought to protect actors from being replaced by AI. So this shows you like how serious this is. Now, this is a recent example, but the film Late Night with the Devil, it used AI generated images for the interstitials. So the opening image and the images like "we'll be right back, more to come," those images were generated by AI, and it was not disclosed by the directors until it was pointed out. The directors of the movie, Cameron and Colin Cairns, had this to say about the AI used in the movie. In conjunction with our amazing graphics and production design team, all of whom worked tirelessly to give this film the 70s aesthetic we'd always imagined, we experimented with AI for 3 still images, which we edited further and ultimately appear as very brief interstitials in the film. We feel incredibly fortunate to have had such a talented and passionate cast, crew, and producing team go above and beyond to help bring this film to life. And the star of the movie, David Dastmalchian, had this to say in an interview with Kevin McCarthy when asked about the AI used in the movie.
Sure. Yeah, it was a couple of years ago, and I remember, looking at them, and they had such an awesome. The only thing that makes me sad is that we had such an awesome graphics design team and all these artists that were working on making this film so perfect. So it makes me sad that that's a story that's getting the attention. But I get it. I mean, I'm absolutely in a place right now where that is something that we've learned so much about in the last few years since we made this movie, and that I don't want near the creative process, but I totally stand by the brothers. I was there with them. It was a couple of years ago when they were this is brand new stuff, and like, oh look, this cool thing generated an image, and now our artists are doing a thing with it. So I think they said it really well, and I stand by what they said, and I completely stand by this movie as a thoroughly original piece of work that so many man hours went into this incredible artistic craftsmanship of building this set, building this world. So, it's a good conversation to have, though. It's an important conversation. We got to have it.
Since the AI was not disclosed, it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, and it still made 2.8 million during its opening weekend. But I don't know. How did you feel about the use of AI in Late Night with the Devil? Did it bother you? Or were you just like, let me know about that in the comments. And Blumhouse Productions is also experimenting with the use of AI and AI tools. In an article with the Hollywood Reporter, it talks about Jason Blum and Blumhouse and the use of AI. As Hollywood tests the waters with artificial intelligence, Blumhouse has partnered with Meta on a series of short films that use the recently announced Meta Movie Gen, the tech giant's AI tools that create video and corresponding audio. Blumhouse produced 3 short films that were made with the help of Meta Movie Gen from filmmakers Casey Affleck, Anish Chaganty, and the Spurlock sisters. The short films were part of a pilot program run by Meta that is meant to garner feedback from the creative community about their text-to-video tools. Blumhouse was approached by Meta to work with filmmakers to help test the generative AI tools. The company said they will continue to test Meta Movie Gen, which is not yet available publicly, with creatives into 2025. And as you can imagine, there was a heavy, strong interaction against Blumhouse and against Jason Blum. And whenever he was asked about it, he had this to say.
How much do you think that AI is going to be used in future Blumhouse feature films? And also, what do you want to say to people who are fearful of AI and are worried that it could take away jobs?
We had a ton of negative press around that, a ton of negative reaction. My point of view is artists, we are a company that enables artists. Artists always come first, and artists want tools. And to me, it would be irresponsible if we didn't at least know about the tools. It would be irresponsible to not learn about the tools. So I know nothing about AI. I wanted to do this to learn about it. So we worked with 3 filmmakers to make these little shorts so that we could learn about it. And so when a filmmaker asks me about AI and can I do effects with AI or what can I do or what can't I do, I at least want to be able to have a reasonable answer before I bury my head in the sand. Yeah. And that was why I did it. And I don't really have a feeling one way or another generally about AI. I think it's 50% good and 50% horrible. But I want to understand. Because one thing I can for sure, it's here to stay. Yeah. So I want to understand it.
He's saying that artists are the lifeblood of the industry, and that AI is going to be used just as a tool. And he seems to imply that it's not going to replace creatives, but who knows? And it seems like there's a lot of dueling stances on Hollywood about AI. Guillermo del Toro called AI soulless and incapable of evoking a human emotion. He likened it to a fancy screensaver.
But AI has demonstrated that it can do semi-compelling screensavers. That's essentially that. And I think that the value of art is not how much it costs and how little effort it requires, is how much would you risk to be in its presence. What would you do to be in the presence of Starry Night at the Musée d'Orsay? Would you go to Paris? Yes. Would you stand in line for 3 hours? Yes. And then you would have 5 minutes in which you will be monumentally moved by that, So how much would people pay for those screensavers? Are they going to make them cry because they lost a son, a mother, because they misspent their youth? Fuck no. No, it's not going to happen. But that's going to take some years to find out. And in the meantime, they're in the hands of people that don't think about it as a tool, but as a solution. That's like asking a monkey wrench to build you a garage. F that, it's impossible. You cannot grab the monkey wrench and say, okay, fix my toilet. It's a tool. It's a tool, and not a tool that should be in the hands of anyone, but it should be, if at all, optional and in the hands of the artist.
Meanwhile, you have Zack Snyder, who sees AI as more of a tool. In an article that was written by IGN, Snyder was quoted as saying, "Educating yourself and understanding what AI can and can't do is important right now, especially where it exists in image making and storytelling. You have to understand what it is and what it's not capable of. You have to be able to use it as a tool, as opposed to standing on the sidelines with your hands on your hips. Creating shots which are otherwise difficult to access is a chief example of where AI can be useful," Snyder said. "AI doesn't care if a house is on fire, if it's on Mars, or whether it's underwater. All the things that might cost a filmmaker a lot of money to shoot are, to the AI, no different." I'd be very curious to know whose side are you on there, Del Toro's or Snyder's. I searched on YouTube for clips from AI, like short AI films that were generated with AI, and I came across a 2-minute zombie apocalypse themed one called A Place in Hell. Of course, I love the zombie apocalypse. I was intrigued, so I clicked on it. I'm not going to show the entire movie, but here's a little segment of it. Some cool visuals, especially with the back and forth between like the apocalypse and the past with the way things were. For me, everything in this looked a little bit too, at times, too polished. For instance, the car, and also the facial movement did not look that great. The man driving the car changes in every scene. It can't form letters that well, so words that are used, like say on the buildings, are spelled incorrectly because of that. It ends up feeling soulless. AI can't replace the human touch that makes horror so effective in the first place. And it thrives on emotion, it thrives on authenticity, which are things that AI struggles to deliver. Overusing AI risks creating these generic videos and these generic visuals and shutting out genuinely talented creatives who have something new to bring to the table. And that's a little bit of a scary thought. Practical effects aren't something that needs to stay in the past. They're an important part of what makes horror work. And they can be done if you take a look at the more recent Terrifier movies, and especially with Terrifier 3, practical effects galore, and it was glorious. Special effects ground the story, keep people interested, keep them engaged. I'm not going to completely discount AI because it does have its place in things like maybe editing a video, adding some very simple effects, maybe some audio cleanup, but AI is not a replacement for creativity. For instance, I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit all of my videos. And I use the text-based editing feature to help cut down on editing time. I use the audio cleanup tools to help me get better audio. But I would never rely on AI to do things like create my visuals for my thumbnails or to write my scripts. Creativity is the act of creation. It is about bringing something new into the world. And AI just can't do that. The horror is about making us feel fear. It's about making us feel shock. It's about making us feel disgust. And that is something that only humans, only people can deliver. So here's the bottom line. If CGI keeps being overused, if AI completely takes over horror, horror risks losing its edge. Imagine every scare feeling the same, predictable, sanitized, and just meh. That is what's at stake here. Horror needs practical effects. It needs those visuals, that artistry to make it impactful. So what can we do? Well, as horror fans, we have a very important role to play. Support the horror films that celebrate the use of practical effects and the creativity that comes with them. Spread the word about directors and artists who are using practical effects in their films and who are trying to keep this art alive. Let's champion special effects because they are one awesome part of what makes the horror genre special. But at the end of the day, horror is going to be at its best when it feels real. CGI and AI have their place, but when creativity is taken away from humans, the horror genre could risk losing its heart, its undead beating heart and soul. So we should keep the fight alive for keeping horror old school with practical effects. Thank you so much for watching this video about keeping horror old school. What are your thoughts about AI, CGI, its use in art and in movies? Is it something you care for? Is it something you're worried about? Is it something that you don't care either way, like how it's used? Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. I would really like to know like what y'all are thinking here. Share this video with fellow horror fans and fans of practical effects in horror because it really does help. And subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a retro horror school class or discussion. I'm going to toss up a few more videos here that I think you might like, and sadly, class is dismissed, everybody, for now, but I'll see you next time. Bye!